All right, let's jump right in. We're going to break down the first 72 hours of a brand new conflict that has completely upended the global security landscape. It's called Operation Epic Fury. So what exactly went down in those first 3 critical days? Let's get into it.
Right from the get-go, President Donald Trump himself set the stakes incredibly high. He came out with this pretty chilling statement, basically suggesting that everything we're about to walk through, yeah, that's just the opening act. It's just the prelude.
So, that really brings us to the big question, right? The one we're here to unpack. 72 hours into a brand new war. How on earth did it all begin?
Well, it all kicked off with one single devastating blow. On February 28, 2026, the US and Israel launched this incredibly coordinated strike with a very, very specific goal: to take out Iran's entire leadership structure. Just boom, all at once.
And just look at how brutally affected that opening strike was. We're talking about the supreme leader himself, Ayatollah Khamenei, confirmed dead. You've got top IRGC commanders like General Salami and General Bagheri, all reported neutralized. I mean, in just a matter of moments, the regime's entire command and control, it was just thrown into absolute chaos. Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting. The reaction inside Iran. It was completely split down the middle. On one hand, you had the IRGC organizing these big pro-regime rallies. But then, on the other hand, you had reports flooding out of spontaneous celebrations in major cities like Tehran and Shiraz, people setting off fireworks, chanting anti-regime slogans. It just shows you a country that was instantly and deeply divided by what just happened.
So with the leadership in chaos, what about the military response? Well, it was immediate and it was massive. Iran just unleashed this absolute torrent of missiles and drones. It kicked off with the U.S. Secretary of Defense as already calling the most lethal and complex air war in history. Think about that.
So you might be wondering, how did the coalition get the upper hand so fast? Well, it all comes down to this key military acronym, SEAD, which stands for Suppression of Enemy Air Defenses. The idea here isn't just to, plink away at missile launchers one by one. No, the goal is to completely dismantle the entire network, the radars, the command centers, the whole shebang, so your own planes can fly over enemy territory pretty much whenever they want.
But of course, in air war, this complex creates what military folks call the fog of war. And we saw a tragic example of that over Kuwait. In the middle of this huge Iranian missile barrage, Allied air defenses got it wrong. They misidentified 3 American F-15E jets as hostile, and they shot them down. It's just a brutal reminder of how fast things can spiral out of control in combat like this.
And this wasn't just happening over Kuwait, not by a long shot. The entire Gulf basically turned into a massive combat zone. You had Qatar shooting down Iranian bombers, the UAE intercepted something like 148 drones, and we also saw the first ever combat use of a new U.S. weapon, a one-way attack drone called Lucas. You might know these better as suicide drones.
All right, so let's pivot for a second, away from the pure military side of things and over to the global economy. Because wow, the shockwave from this hit the world's energy markets almost instantly.
Just look at this number, 8%. In the first 48 hours of this conflict, that's how much global oil prices jumped. That is an immediate, painful hit not just to the global economy, but, let's be real, to all of us at the gas pump. And it's clear that Iran's retaliation strategy was laser-focused on one thing: choking the world's energy supply. They went after critical targets. You're seeing a drone attack on the Ras Tanura refinery. That's one of the biggest in the world. A deadly drone strike on an oil tanker off Oman. And then, the big one: a threat to completely blockade the Strait of Hormuz. We're talking about a tiny waterway that sees a fifth of the entire world's oil pass through it. A threat like that alone sends shipping insurance rates into the stratosphere, and that affects the price of pretty much everything you buy.
Okay, now we need to talk about the most devastating part of all this: the human cost. And in just 3 days, it has been absolutely staggering.
Let's just take a moment and let these numbers sink in. Inside Iran, from those initial U.S. and Israeli strikes, the reported death toll is at least 555. And tragically, that number includes 85 people, most of them young schoolgirls who were killed when a strike hit a primary school in the city of Minab.
On the other side, in Israel, retaliatory Iranian missile fire has killed 11 people.
And for the United States, the fighting so far has cost the lives of 6 American service members. These aren't just numbers on a screen. This is the real human toll of this war, right at the very beginning. And beyond the casualties, the conflict brought the entire region to a standstill in other ways. Think about this. Major airports, huge international hubs like Dubai and Doha just completely suspended all commercial flights. We're talking hundreds of thousands of passengers just stranded. It's the biggest disruption to global air travel we've seen since 2020.
So after all that chaos, all that destruction in just 72 hours, the one question on everyone's mind is, what happens next? Where does this all go from here? Let's take a look at the geopolitical chessboard.
Back home in the US, things are complicated. Public support for this is incredibly divided. Polling shows that only about 1 in 4 Americans is actually on board with the military operation. And that's happening even as the administration insists it's acting for a silent majority. And if you look at the international reaction, it's a total minefield. You have China, which is practically begging everyone to stop, terrified this will trigger a global economic collapse. Meanwhile, Iran's proxy, Hezbollah, has already started firing rockets into Israel. But then, in a really surprising twist, the Lebanese government actually tried to ban Hezbollah's military actions. They are desperate to not get dragged into a bigger war.
So what's the official line from the White House? They're insisting, publicly, this is not a regime change war. The stated mission is very specific: eliminate Iran's nuclear program and its ballistic missile threat for good. But, and this is a big but, President Trump has also pointedly refused to take a ground invasion off the table.
And that brings us right back to where we started this whole thing. That quote from the president. The big wave, he says, is still on its way. But what is that wave going to do? Is it going to be the thing that forces a quick end to all this? Or is it going to be the thing that unleashes a truly catastrophic war across the entire region, one that nobody can control? Honestly, that is the terrifying question hanging over the entire planet right now.